Please welcome everyone to Sunday Sentiments
in the battle against COVID-19.
Almost people try to justify what he did.
Charged.
Of course, this is a hate crime.
Saved. That's a very traumatic event.
Wow, I mean, it's a violation of human rights.
Welcome everyone to Sunday Sentiments, where we meet every 2 weeks on a Sunday and we discuss current news, we discuss topics of interest, and we love this group because it's so diverse and we get different opinions, and we hope you enjoy too. Today's topics, I would like to give a trigger warning. So some of the things we'll discuss today are quite upsetting. So there'll be a trigger warning of death, racism. So if this is something that will upset you, maybe just proceed with caution. And if you do need support, you can contact us through our website. And if you're within the panel, you can contact us through our WhatsApp group. I would also like to say that we will respect each other's opinions and experiences. There's no judgment here. We want to be open because we're here to learn. One more thing, please like and subscribe to support our channel. We're trying to grow it, and if you subscribe to the channel, then you get notifications when we have new content. So please share, like, subscribe. I'm going to pass you over to Jamila, who is handling our first.
Working. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the Derek Chauvin case. On the 20th of April, 2021, ex-police officer Derek Chauvin was found guilty on 3 charges: second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter. But everyone's talking about how systemic racism it still exists around the world, and we hope that this trial has opened everyone's eyes to an evil in this world that has been going on for so long. And I just want to ask everyone, how do you feel about this verdict? Do you think it could have been, stronger? I don't think it could have been, but how do you think, how does this affect you? How does this make you feel? Just put your hands up if you want to say something. Okay, Keshi?
For me, I must say I was surprised that he was found guilty of all 3 charges, because the policemen have been using brutality, not just in the US, but around the world. And they always get away with it. So for me, it's just a surprise that in all 3 counts, he was found guilty. And I think that marks a change in the way such cases are handled, especially when it comes to brutality because of targeting people of color or Black people that has been ignored for a long time. So for me, that was a surprise.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was quite surprised. I actually thought that he would be let off, even though the whole world was watching. You kind of, get into this mindset of, well, past things like this that have happened in the past have never ended with any justice. So this was really surprising. And I think that if we all work together how we work together when it happened, we can solve so many issues that are happening right now, especially with a lot of Black people in the US, what they go through. Shamsa?
Yeah, it's not new for me. These type of news are quite familiar now. US police have a history of violence against Black people. My only question is here, will it ever stop? Inquiries, probes and everything will start again and again, and these type of things happening continuously. And There is no point if there is investigation, one person found guilty, he will be penalized and everything. No, system should be changed. There must be a system. There there must be someone who take initiative to stop this.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that as well, because when you're so used to things never being, sorted out like this, you start to realize that it's not really the people on that level, it's deep rooted into our literal society. So we actually have to, like a tree, we have to dig it up from the roots. That's where the issue is. Who's next? Imani?
So yeah, I've heard from someone, a Danish African Instagrammer, who made an interesting post on Instagram saying, why is it that we are congratulating and celebrating about something that should be obvious? Like, if you kill, you should be trialed for it. But like Keshi said, people were surprised. We really weren't expecting like the person to be charged, and that's so sad. Like, we're supposed to expect, like, it's like, if you kill, you're a criminal, you should get punished. But in this case, people will all think it wouldn't happen, and that's why everybody was congratulating, like, Black people on Instagram. Oh, congrats! Oh, we're happy for you, and all kinds of things. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be expected.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The fact that everyone's taking it as, like, a win, we finally got justice, and you do actually think about it, about how sad it is that we're getting happy for someone being convicted when that's what should have always happened. That's what's always meant to happen. When someone kills someone, especially when there's evidence around it, like someone actually recorded it. And the fact that I do believe it did take a long time for the police to do something about it. They kind of just allowed him to stay in his house as a murderer, protected him. And then it's been a whole year, and that's when we finally got justice served on this guy. So thanks for that, Imani. Shakira?
It was just also to reiterate Imani's point that people were surprised, which I do understand but it's also really sad because even Breonna Taylor's death, those men all just walked. Nothing happened to them at all. Like, they literally broke into the wrong house because they can't apparently read numbers, killed somebody, and then said, oh, but they shot at us first. If a bunch of people like broke into your house, you would shoot at them too if you had something to defend yourself with. But also, like you were saying, I don't understand why we had to go through several weeks of trials for a murder that we literally have all seen happen. We've all seen the video. We've all seen, like, this man literally being killed in front of our eyes, and somehow we still have to take 2 weeks to be like, oh, but maybe he didn't die because of that. And even just because of the start of Derek Chauvin's trial, there's a lot more, like, the amount of people who've been murdered by police since the start of the trial has been going up. Like, when I looked it up, it was 64 people since the start of his trial, which was like less than 2 weeks, like 2 weeks or something ago. 64 people were murdered by the hands of police, and half of them were people of color. And people are still trying to be like, oh, there might be something, oh, but maybe the police has some kind of defense, like Ma'Khia Bryant, who was shot because she was defending herself after she was the one who called the cops after she got jumped and they killed her. And people are still trying to be like, oh, but she had whatever on her. I don't really think it's going to change very soon, but I really wish it would.
Thanks for that, Shakira. We are going to talk about her later on. But the fact that these people are allowed to, enact violence on others, and then, like you said, the numbers have gone up, so they must be confident. They must have seen even his trial, Derek's trial, and thought they're not really doing that much, because obviously at the beginning they really took a long time to, actually say that what he did was murder. And people are just like, oh, well, I think that it's okay to kill people. No one said anything about it. And now, hopefully, the fact that he's actually been, his verdict, he was actually guilty of 3 things. They can see that and be like, oh, this could happen to me. But like we said, it's kind of depends on the systemic racism and how we can fix that from the root of it all. Keshi?
Thank you, Jamila. Actually, I wanted to mention that thing about systemic racism, and that's why Imani and Shakira, people are congratulating, because even if it's a fact of life that if you're found guilty of murder, then if you have killed someone, then you're guilty. That's not how it has been, not just in the US, around the world. And it's not just a black and white thing, because we have policemen in Kenya using brutality to kill people, and are all over around the world. So this is a twofold thing. It's a race thing, and it's a thing about police brutality. So all the eyes were looking at this case to see what would be done. Are they going to change this system of accepting brutality as the way police people, and especially this bias policing of people of color? So hopefully, like Joe Biden and his prime minister, no, and his vice president said, they hope that this is a giant step towards racial justice. And we can add something more and say, we hope this is a giant step towards the stopping of police brutality around the world. I've been here in Denmark, a witness to police slamming a guy down, a guy who had been accused of stealing from a supermarket. And the force use, in my opinion, was not justified. So these are things that have to be addressed, both the racial injustice and police brutality.
Yeah, I agree. The power that the police has been given, it needs to be taken down a lot of notches. They can't carry on, people steal stuff from stores and then they treat them like they're a mass murderer, throwing them onto the floor like they had a gun or something like that. And it happens in so many cases, especially you see in America, people they tell them to get their ID. They look like they're getting their ID, then they shoot them, thinking they were going for a gun. When, if you think about it, they're probably not trained to just out of nowhere shoot someone just because they think they have a gun. If that was the case, then probably shoot everyone that you ask for an ID then. I agree with that. Shiko, next.
Okay, I'm just going to share a screen of the picture that really woke the global conscience, and I think it's the video as well. I think the reason why this became such a thing was people seeing this man kneeling on Floyd's neck, and he looked nonchalant, hand in the pocket, just unbothered. I think that's what triggered the global conscience. And what is a positive thing about this case, of course, it's good that the verdict was guilty, but what happened here really got people around the world, Kenya, all developing countries where they have this really aggressive, brutal police forces. It got people to start thinking of standing up for themselves and protesting against police brutality. So that's one positive has come from this. But also what happened was Black people, people of color got allies. So many people thought we cannot just stand back. This is just too much. We're watching this, standing back as, I don't know who made this quote that if you do not take the side of people who are facing an injustice, then you're taking the side of the oppressor. And I think many people at that point said, no way, we cannot be quiet and join the protest. And that was so good. This is the only way change is going to come. And we know it's not going to be overnight. Yes, there was a guilty verdict, but I'm sorry, I don't feel as optimistic as everyone else. I feel like there's a lot of work still to be done. And in our own country, and we'll talk about this in a bit, we were just told the other day that there's no systemic racism. There's no institutional racism in the UK. So for me, some of these things are just for show. we need to see actions. We need to actually see, it's not just about Derek Chauvin. It's about the systems that enable this kind of thing to happen. Are they going to start making changes at that level? That's when I will start being convinced that things are changing.
Yeah, I wasn't that optimistic either, because on the same day, a 16-year-old girl was literally killed by a police officer. So it's just like, yeah, okay, great. On screen, everyone can see Derek Chauvin, you know, and what his trial was like, but that's not really the root of it, and that's not really what we want to see. I mean, it is something that we want to see because we want to see him get justice, but there's so much more that's been going on. I mean, Breonna Taylor's, like Shakira said before, it's just a joke. Yeah. Megan, I saw your hand up before.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so a really interesting point that was kind of triggered by some of the other women speaking is that the police are obviously supposed to uphold laws, not break them, but the fact that the police establishment itself is so corrupt, the idea that, you know, the police are supposed to hold people accountable for their crimes, but the very fact of that is that police don't stop crimes from happening, and in more cases, more often than not, they actually exacerbate the situation. What stops crimes from happening is community funding, community groups, society kind of coming together to work cohesively. And I think that's really important. But also, I can't remember his name, but I was reading about it a while ago. And it's based on the American police and the difference in treatment of white people versus people of color or black people. And there was a man, and he went and he killed a lot of people in a church. And they went up to him, they tasered him, they handcuffed him, they brought him outside, they sat him in the shade because it was too hot. So you're telling me that they can treat a white person with respect and dignity when they are a murderer, but when a black person, what was it that George Floyd did? They thought he paid with a fake bill, but it was a real bill, and he dies for it. It just it blows my mind, absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah, now that you've brought it up, there are so many things. We were talking about it a lot. There was a lot of talk about it in 2020, where the black people would be killed over the simplest things, like a tiny boy holding a toy gun, and the police officer thought, let me shoot this kid. And it's like, there are actual crimes going on, but you're not really sorting those out. It's like you're almost bored, but you're not really doing your job in the first place. So it's like, that's why people are saying, you know, things like ACAB, they just don't want the police anymore, because if you're not doing anything, then what's the point of you being there in the first place? So thanks for that point, Megan. Who would like to, does anyone else want to say something? Maggie? And then Catherine.
Okay, I just wanted to add something. In case of George Floyd, it wouldn't have happened if it was not of that video that was captured by that young girl, because I saw part of the proceedings in court where the attorney of Derek was arguing that George was kicking and maybe he was violent and things like that. But when he knelt on his neck for 9 minutes, so they would have captured even that part of kicking and whatever. So I think because of that video, and it shows how powerful social media is. So I think if people can capture such things and post them on social media, then it can also gain some support, because that one gotten some support. Okay, I wasn't surprised that he was going to be charged, but my surprise was the magnitude of the charges, because I think they had to do something because of the way the global world was watching and was seeing and was following. But the magnitude, that is a surprise. It is a step, okay, we know justice to be served, it has to be restored, but at least he is accountable for what he did, which is very important.
Exactly, Maggie. And what you were saying about social media, not social media, yeah, I guess, is that has actually become our protection, not the police. We don't go to call the police for help in these type of situations, we get our phone out so that person knows that if you do something to me, it's going to be on video and I'm going to capture it. It's on social media and millions of people will see it. So us like actually depending on social media more than the police should show them something, but they clearly don't want to see what they're doing wrong in that aspect. Catherine?
Yeah, one thing I was going to mention was what sort of showed the culture and how sure and protected the police feels, I think was shown that there were other policemen, I think 3 of them, who watched Derek to be 9 minutes and 30 minutes, watched him, how he killed George Floyd, and they didn't do anything. They didn't show any civil courage to interfere and to help George Floyd. And I think that's just the background of the culture. And I can understand that American police is very frightened when they engage in any situation because there are just so many guns around. So they, but there seems to be a different aggression towards Black people, obviously, and also maybe a different fear towards Black people. So this whole to say, will this be a change? Yes, it's one of those big steps that the society takes, but yes, I'm not so optimistic that this is a quick or a big solution. If you see that the Biden administration has you say tried or passed through Congress the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act of 2021, and it's now stuck in the Senate, and it needs 2/3 of a majority. So this act is supposed to reduce brutality within the police and to give more accountability back to the police. But I mean, I can't see that this is going to get through the Senate because it would need the Conservatives, the Republicans to vote for it, or at least a few of them. And they're still so much in the grip of Trump, who already is getting everything together for his campaign for 2024. And the way it looks, it'll be all about white supremacy. So it's big work ahead, but it definitely was a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, back to what you were saying, Catherine, about guns. I do believe that, you know, they always use the excuse of, oh, protection, guns are for protection, but they don't understand how the rest of the world works, even though there's police brutality around the globe, literally. But it's not to the extent of like America where anyone can have a gun, and the fact that anyone can gives the police the boost to think they can use it because they think everything that people are grabbing or going for is a gun. And they're there probably with, you know, a police protection vest, but then there'll be someone there who's vulnerable and they shoot them in the chest. I think that's very unfair. Okay, so we are going to wrap up this subject, and I'd like to introduce our next host, Keshi, and she's going to be talking about the shooting that actually happened on the day of the verdict. Thank you for watching, and please, you know, like and subscribe.